I'd like to hear Congressman speak on the same subject. It's entirely appropriate.
I'd love to. In fact, the issue of trial lawyers in medicine, I think, is clear. That their involvement in medicine and how they have approached making money for themselves has raised the cost of healthcare. In fact, 5 years ago, I wrote a constitutional amendment in the state of Florida that would try to take some of the incentive away from trial lawyers. Ultimately, the Florida Medical Association took the amendment that I wrote, ran it all the way through, and it passed and became part of our Constitution that said that the victim would receive 70% of any of the damages that were awarded. So in effect, we capped the trial attorneys to 30%. Now, if you remember, trial attorneys will come around and say, how can you say that someone's arm or leg is only worth $250,000? So I said, okay, well, instead of saying we're going to put a number on how much that leg or arm might be worth, we're going to say, you're right, it's the victim that should receive those dollars, not the, and at that time I say, greedy or irresponsible trial lawyers. So I believe that you can talk about wanting to go up and lobby some people, or you can act. And in this case, I wrote a constitutional amendment, and it passed by 64% in the state of Florida. Because I don't believe that doctors should be practicing medicine in a way to try to protect their butt. They should be practicing medicine in a way that helps and serves the patient. And as long as the trial lawyers are out there circling around trying to get every dime they can out of them, they're going to be forced to try to practice defensive medicine.
Before you turn it, Mr. Neal, we'll go back to just if there's any. You just want to do
just a quick comment. Lawyers that are interviewing patients on medical malpractice claims, get them to sign a waiver, waiving that particular constitutional right. Because as you know, you can waive your right to a speedy trial. You can waive your right to trial by jury. Constitutional rights you can waive. That's a constitutional right that in the routine now is waived, so it didn't really accomplish anything. But the point is, there's a tremendous amount of money that's being wasted in our healthcare system, and Congress could do some things to make sure that that money stays back in the system instead of being wasted.
I didn't try to lobby it. I actually wrote a constitutional amendment to try to fix it. I think there's a difference there.
Okay. Mr. Neal?
You know, universal health care even scares me, and I'm a Democrat. What my colleagues on the ballot don't understand is that health care is part of infrastructure. Just like roads and bridges, police, fire, ports, airports, education, and health care. And until we begin to treat health care as part of infrastructure, making it readily available and affordable to all, our country will never excel again. Same way with education. We need to have the healthiest and brightest country in the world in order to be competitive on the world stage. I propose to expand the Medicare system. That's my proposal to solve this problem in increments. Every 4 years when we inaugurate a new president, we change the age of eligibility for Medicare from 60 to 65 and from 0 to 5. And what we do is we make 60-year-olds who now have Medicare, they'll start going to the doctor. When they get to be 65, they'll be healthier, their care costs will be lower. Also, prenatal and age 0 to 5, everybody knows a well baby with all its shots and good care is healthier and better able to be educated. 4 years from then, it drops from 60 to 55 and increases from 5 to 10. People pay that Medicare B premium just like our seniors do. If you don't think Medicare works, you ask a senior if they're willing to give up their Medicare. They won't do it because it works. That's a single payer system. It solves this problem that Senator Saunders has described of 2 different people having to bill only because there's 200 different ways to get paid. We can fix it if we treat it as infrastructure and instead of trying to scare everyone with the words universal health care.
Mr. George?
Well, I've spent a fair amount of my life traveling around the world, and I have to say in all honesty that I'm not at all scared by the word universal health care. In fact, I side with the majority of physicians in this country, and according to most polls, the majority of Americans who want a single-payer national health care plan. Not yesterday, not next year, 10 years down the road, now. And I know that this is politically unpopular, and yet strangely enough, this is popular with the majority of the people that are out there. Now, respectfully, everything that I've heard here on the table today is really tinkering. Mr. Neal is talking about a plan that essentially we're looking at Medicare, which is already in debt, and he's talking about putting those who are going to be able to contribute the least to the system more onto the rolls. We need to switch to a single payer plan. We need to get the unnecessary middlemen out of the HMOs and the insurance companies, because as long as they are in the business to make a profit, they are going to be a drag on the system. We need to do something about the fact that so many people in this country don't have health care. So many people in this country that have health care pay such high deductibles that they wait until they're deathly ill to show up in the emergency room to get treatment. We have to do something about portability. As long as we have private insurance companies, as long as we are mandating that employers pay for insurance, we're going to have a problem of portability. We're also going to be stifling our small businesses. You know, I have a friend of mine, a good friend of the family. He works for a well-known convenience store chain, and his wife suffers from multiple sclerosis. That convenience company chain, because of the economic problems that they're having, is currently looking to cut every employee that they can. He has basically become an indentured servant to that company, because he knows that if he loses that job there, he's never going to be able to find adequate health care coverage for his wife again because of her pre-existing condition. And this is what's got to change. This is why we have to stop tinkering with the system and adapt a real national single-payer health care plan.
And just in response to that, do you believe that every citizen of the United States is entitled by right to health insurance and health coverage?
I don't think it's an entitlement in terms of rights, but I think that it is a basic responsibility of national governments in the 21st century to take care of this. Because not only is it a responsibility to the citizens, but it's also a responsibility to the overall economic welfare of the country. When you have a country full of healthy citizens, that country does better. When you don't have the enormous drag on the economy that runaway healthcare expenses are in this nation, I believe 1/7 of the economy is going to medicine right now, then you have a better functioning country. You know, America leads the way in so many respects, but in this one area, I think it's time to show a little humility and admit that we can learn a lesson from what the rest of the world, or the rest of the developed world, has already figured out.
David, I'd like to ask a question, and perhaps we could go in reverse order because we've kind of moved around the table in a consistent way. If you would explain to me, and I would think that, you know, in a minute and a half would be reasonable, a capsule accounting of what you would propose as a congressman for energy independence for the United States, and what sort of legislation you would bring forward, please.
Okay, well, so Mr. George, you admitted a minute and a half, so we'll keep it at that.
Okay. Dave, cool.
The bottom line is that we've got a nasty dependence on coal and oil in this country that we need to kick. Not only is it causing us environmental problems in terms of pollution, it's causing us economic problems because of the amount of money that we're throwing away on inefficient industry, and it's causing us real security issues because we're dependent on foreign sources of oil. We have problems with terrorism. What we need to do is that we need to focus on truly renewable energy sources. We need to focus on sources like solar, wind, geothermal. I'm certainly not opposed to taking a look at nuclear power as well. I'd like to see it down the list a bit, but I think that's a viable option. Until we stop this pandering to the oil companies, until we stop pandering to the special interests that are keeping us virtually enslaved to a system of inefficient energy, we're not going to make any headway. And I know.
Mr. Neal?
I continue to oppose offshore drilling. And the reason is it will take it 8 to 10 years to come online. Well, as I recall, back in the 40s, we had a Manhattan Project that developed a weapon that ended World War II and brought the world into the nuclear age. In the 60s, we had a space program that put a man on the moon and returned him safely to the Earth. I think if we took the same dollars that we would invest in offshore drilling and put them to work with our brightest minds, that within the same 8 to 10 years, we will have developed a new energy source or a more reliable old energy source, such as solar, wind, or nuclear. We may even be able to find biofuels that will work for us even better than they do today. We may be able to base our economy on hydrogen instead of fossil fuels. So my view is that we need to invest in our future by investing in research into this alternative energy instead of spending the money on offshore drilling that could only serve to further increase the stranglehold of foreign governments on our country and pollute our environment as well.
I'm sorry, I've got to ask a clarifying question. I think there's time. Is it an either-or issue? Either offshore drilling or the other?
Yes, sir, in my view it is.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why, because you cannot give an inch to the oil companies. They will take the entire mile.
Great, thank you. Senator?
Thank you. I had the pleasure of doing the energy bill for the Florida Senate this year, and we have a great policy here for the state of Florida for our energy future. We're going to make our buildings more energy efficient. We can reduce the amount of electricity we use in our buildings by over 50%. We're going to make our automobiles more energy efficient in terms of the class of vehicles that we use. We're going to do a lot of things in terms of alternative energy, in terms of biomass, solar, wind. We're going to incentivize those industries coming to Florida. Those are the types of things that we need to do at the federal level. This whole issue of energy and energy independence ties into everything we do in terms of our competitiveness, in terms of terrorism. We know that terrorists get their hands on some of the money that we're paying to some of the Middle Eastern countries for oil. We have $700 billion a year that we're spending on foreign oil. Again, the largest transfer of wealth from this country in our history. And so we have to do something, and we can't wait until somebody develops some other new source of energy. We need to start right now. It's unfortunate we didn't start 8 years ago. So what do we need to do? We need to provide significant incentives for alternative energy, such as wind, solar, nuclear, biomass. We need to require our power companies that are generating electricity using fossil fuels to start looking at renewable portfolio standards. In Florida, we have one that's a little bit flexible, but we will have a 20% renewable portfolio standard requiring Florida Power, Light, and other companies to go to as much as 20% solar, wind, and biomass. We need to require that. We need to take advantage of the resources we have in this country. It's not going to take 8 or 10 years to get natural gas and oil from the Gulf of Mexico. It'll be a lot shorter than that because there'll be economic incentives to do it.
Thank you, Senator. Congressman?
Thank you. Well, you know, there's quite a debate in Washington on what to do, and my feeling is we have to do all of it. We need to invest in more refinery capacity. We need to invest and build nuclear power plants. We need to invest in alternative sources of energy, in technologies that will produce more energy. We need to, instead of trying to pick one or the other, we need to do it all. And the reason is because our national security and our way of life depends on it. This is our challenge. This is our great challenge. And we can continue to say things like, well, you know, let's not drill because it's going to take so long. And by the way, this is one of those areas where, and I know it's not popular, and as a politician you're not supposed to, but I changed. Because the times have changed and the world has changed. And to continue to sit by and let people like Hugo Chavez, Ahmadinejad, and Putin to grow their wealth because we have to buy the oil from them at such high prices that we're funding our own demise by not looking for domestic sources of energy. The caveat that I have is, on drilling off the coast of Florida, is we ought to make sure that the state of Florida has a say in where that's going to happen. I always believe and continue to believe that the state, the legislature, ought to decide what distance off the coast we should drill. And like other states, the state of Florida should get revenue from it as well, that it doesn't just go to the federal government. So I think we need to invest in it all and unleash the entrepreneurial spirit of this country.
Mr. Egenberg?
An unprecedented amount of American people think their federal Congress is a disgrace. Yet they keep re-electing the same cast of characters and also keep supporting their own incumbents. As recognizing that potentially third-term congressman and potentially first-term congressman doesn't have a lot of seniority and a lot to do, what would be your thoughts in how you're going to improve not only the image but the legitimate American contribution that Congress was designed to be able to do? I don't care who you start with. Let's just start with Mr. Neal.
All right, Mr. Neal, and then we'll just go this way.
You know, I guess I was pretty lucky that I didn't win in 2006 and become part of the Democratic majority that has the lowest popularity rating in. So thank you, Congressman Mack, for relieving me of that.
Thank you for carrying the burden.
I hope that you can see, that I can see beyond the next election. I hope that the ideas that I present are good for the American people in the long run. And I hope that when I get to Washington, I can convince at least 290 other congressmen that we're doing what's good for the United States. I want 290 so that we can have a veto-proof majority there just in case we need it. But I don't know if I'm that good, because I still aspire to represent you. What I want to be is a statesman. I want to be a statesman, a man who can reach across the aisle to those other ideas and say, hey, let's do this for the good of the American people. Am I that good? I don't know. I know I will give you my best shot. I know I will do the best I can to make that happen and look beyond the next election and ask you to re-elect me in 2 years. But I need the chance.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. A very good question. I think the problem in general in Congress is that many members of Congress, and I'm not pointing to the incumbent at this at all, I'm saying many members of Congress put their own personal benefit ahead of that of the country. And so you see gridlock, you see partisan bickering, and you don't see problems being solved. This energy bailout's a perfect example. The bill that was first presented was essentially the same thing that was ultimately passed, except in order to get more congressmen to vote for it, pork was added to it. Significant things. The thing perhaps that was the most offensive was the tax break, $2 million tax break for the manufacturer of wooden arrows. Those types of special interests to benefit some member of Congress are what has gotten people so unhappy with Congress. Congress has an approval rating of about 9%. The corruption that we see in Congress, the Abramoff problems that many Republicans had just a couple years ago, the continuing indictments. Those things are destroying the confidence of the American people in Congress. Now, what will I bring? A couple things. Number one, I will work very diligently in this community to make sure that I mingle with the people that I represent and understand what the needs are in this community. I will work on issues such as health care reform, immigration reform, energy independence, and I'll do it in a very bipartisan way because it's important that solutions are found. The issue of do the Republicans get credit for this or do the Democrats get credit for it? People don't care about that. People want solutions. We're at a crisis situation now on so many issues. We cannot keep doing the same things that we've been doing for the last decades. We have to start doing things differently. That's the message I will carry to Congress, that I will be very transparent on the issues. I will work with independents, Democrats, and Republicans to solve these problems. And quite frankly, I don't care who gets credit for it. I want to work for the American people. That's what's lacking in Congress now.
Thank you. Congressman?
Yeah, I guess I would start by saying that I wouldn't base a large part of my campaign on a lie. I wouldn't tell the people that I want to represent that someone doesn't live in his home when he does. I would look at them and talk about what it is that I want to do to try to make their life better. The other thing that I would do, and that I do is challenge leadership from within. I believe that our current Republican leadership has failed in many ways and have been very outspoken about that. Again, when you bring forward a bill such as the bailout bill, and you tell people that, well, it's not really $700 billion now, it's 250 and then 100 if the president certifies it, and then the Congress has to act to put another 250 or 350 billion in, when in fact there is no such vote that has to take place to get the 350 billion. I think that's what the American people look at and go, you know, we're big boys and girls, we can take it, but tell us the truth. So, you know, I think that me being in the Congress, need to challenge our leaders to not play games, to be straightforward with the American people and what our intentions are, to take a stand and lead instead of this bickering back and forth. You know, I heard a lot about when Pelosi gave her speech on the first vote that cost a lot of Republicans votes. Well, I got to tell you, if you're in politics and you can't take someone, your political opponent, telling you that you know, making a speech on the floor and you can't take it and you switch your vote based upon that speech, you've got pretty thin skin and maybe you shouldn't be there. Although at the same time, as a leader, you need to be respectful of the process and understand that anything you do could be used against you. And so I think honesty, that you have to tell the people, if it's popular or unpopular, you need to look them in the eyes and be straight with them and tell them what it is that you're trying to accomplish. And then from within, you need to push our leaders to do that.
Thank you. Mr. George?
Thank you. I really appreciate this question, particularly in this environment, because this really gets to the heart of what my campaign is all about this year. We are basically running under the watchwords of transparency, integrity, and accountability. Now, what does that mean? These are convenient slogans, something along the lines of what every politician puts out. Every politician who's running against an incumbent says, I'm going to go up to Washington and I'm going to change things. The question is there a mechanism in place that allows them to do that? And what exactly is it that needs to be changed? What needs to be changed in Washington, more than anything, is the effect of money on the election system, because this obscures everything in Washington. In order to get elected, you need one thing: money, money, money. And where does that money go? Most of that money goes to the media, who then provide paid advertisement, which provides most of the information that people get about their candidates to do what? To raise more money, to buy more advertising. And this cycle has got to end. Now, what we're doing with this campaign, as you can see next to the news press camera back there, I've also got my camera, is that everything I say and do on the campaign trail, every meeting that we have, we videotape the whole thing. From start to finish, we put that tape online for everybody to see. Now, I don't expect anybody to sit around and watch hundreds of hours of videotape, but that provides 100% transparency. And what we're going to do, if I get elected, is we're going to take that camera with us to Washington, and we're going to repeat the exact same process there, because someone has to show people what's going on. Now, I know in this race, there's no question about it, I'm the underdog. And I don't have a problem with that, because what we're doing, a guy with a camera who says he's going to go to Washington, the bottom line is that's just a gimmick if he doesn't have the support of the people behind him. And so what I'm asking all of you here at the news press and all of the people watching is for the journalists to do a better job of covering the race aside from just the presidential race. I would ask everybody here in this room to take a look at the coverage that you're doing and see what's the ratio of coverage that you provided for this congressional race compared to the presidential race. Do you think that ratio reflects the importance of these races? And then for everybody who's watching, I would ask, if anything that I'm saying makes sense, please come to my website, jeffgeorgeforcongress.com. Get involved. Get out there with us, because this campaign isn't about me, it's about you. And until the people take back Washington, D.C. from the big money corruption, we're not going to get anywhere.
Thank you, Mr. George. Coming to the end of our meeting, are there any final questions before we get to the conclusion?
We're depressed economically. We have a tough time right now. And I was just curious from the candidates what they think the congressional office could do to stimulate our economy locally.
Why don't we go from Mr. George and then come this way? And if you could be as brief as possible, please.
Very briefly, there are a number of things we can do, and it all has to start from a fundamental change of mindset. Government does have a role to play in the prosperity of the middle class, and to that in that respect, we need to raise the minimum wage. We need to make sure that health care and retirement benefits are secure for everybody. We need to make sure that our foreign policy doesn't do damage to the credibility and the economic well-being of the United States. And above all, we have got to get rid of this deficit. We've got to pay down this deficit, and we've got to make spending in Washington as responsible as we expect the spending of everyday middle-class Americans to be.
Thank you. Congressman?
Good question. It just made harder by the way, the bailout bill. We have, I still believe that we need to look at ways to reduce regulation and taxes, the tax burden on business, so they can grow their business, they can hire new people, which has a direct impact on our local economies. So the challenge is going to be, how do we, moving forward in the Congress, with all of the promise that people in running want to promise they're going to do, how do we pay for it? And now add on top of that $700 billion, the cry is not going to be for cutting taxes, it's going to be for raising taxes. I will continue to fight to look for opportunities to help businesses grow so that they can continue to grow not only their business, but they can provide jobs, create jobs for people, which puts food on the plate and drives our economy. The small business in this country is what drives our economy, and we need to make sure we continue to support them, reduce the regulation that's on their shoulders, stop taking so much money from them, and let their businesses grow.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, and that's a very good question. You know, I have a good friend who was recently looking for a job, and the amount of money that he was going to be paid was about $5 or $6 an hour, and he can't support his family on that.
Pardon me, Senator, we're going to take a quick break because of a tape issue, and apologies to you. I'm just going to tape right
Yeah.
here. And then
We ran over a bit.
Does that use up all my time?
you can start over.